India Muizzu changes his tune. From out with the Indians to inviting Prime Minister Modi. From hating to pleading. All hail Vishwaguru's power play. India or China? Who leads Global South? No hugs, only handshakes. Diplomacy has several body languages, and today a friendly but firm message was perhaps sent across. In what is being seen as a U-turn from his anti-India stance, Maldivian President Mohamed Muizzu today thanked India for granting his country financial assistance through one, currency swap, and two, rolling over their treasury bills. The State Bank of India has rolled over $100 million treasury bills of the Maldives, and they will be exchanging currency worth 3,000 crore rupees. Now, the visiting president, remember, is on a 5-day visit to India and held bilateral talks with President Murmu and PM Modi in New Delhi today.
I'm thankful for the Indian government's decision to provide support in the form of 30 billion Indian rupees in addition to $400 million bilateral currency swap agreement, which will be instrumental in addressing the foreign exchange issues we are facing right now.
Meanwhile, while listing out the various ways in which India has helped the Maldives in its tough times, PM Modi announced that more than 700 housing units built with India's cooperation have been handed over to the Maldives.
आज भारत के सहयोग से बनाए गए 700 से अधिक सोशल हाउसिंग यूनिट्स हैंडओवर किए गए हैं। मालदीव के 28 आइलैंड्स पर पानी और सीवरेज प्रोजेक्ट्स पूरे किए गए हैं। 6 अन्य आइलैंड पर भी शीघ्र काम पूरा किया जाएगा। ये प्रोजेक्ट 30,000 लोगों को साफ पानी की सप्लाई सुनिश्चित करेंगे। दालू में एग्रीकल्चर इकोनॉमिक जोन और आलिफू में फर्स्ट प्रोसेसिंग फैसिलिटी स्थापित करने में भी सहयोग दिया जाएगा। ओशिनोग्राफी और ब्लू इकोनॉमी में भी हम साथ मिलकर काम करेंगे। फ्रेंड्स, आर्थिक संबंधों को मजबूत करने के लिए हमने फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट पर चर्चा शुरू करने का निर्णय लिया है।
The two countries, remember, have had a thaw in their ties since Mohamed Muizzu won the elections on an India out plank, with 3 of his officials making derogatory remarks against PM Modi. This then led to Indians boycotting their vacations to the Maldives, making the island nation's tourism industry take a huge hit. However, as India came to Maldives' rescue once again, President Muizzu stressed on a vision for comprehensive economic and maritime security partnership.
We agreed on a comprehensive vision document charting the course of our bilateral relationship. A vision for comprehensive economic and maritime security partnership will encompass development cooperation, trade and economic partnerships, digital and financial initiatives, energy projects, health cooperation, as well as maritime and security cooperation. India is a key partner in the socio-economic.
All right, to talk more about this on Global Mirror, I'm first joined by Mr. Ahmed Adeeb. He's the former Vice President of Maldives. He's also served as the Tourism Minister of the Maldives. Mr. Ahmed Adeeb, thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us on Mirror Now. My first question to you, this is a crucial visit. This is an important visit being made by the Maldivian President, Mohamed Muizzu. Important for both countries. How are the Maldivians seeing this visit?
Thank you very much for having me here. So, I was repeating about this relationship and this trip even before 6 months. I was saying that it's Maldives. The current leadership will realize that it is the India. I mean, history tells us that it's always been India who has been helping us in their most difficult times. Not only us, but also our neighbors. Even if we see Sri Lanka and all. So I see that this trip is taken very seriously by the government, current government as well, and as well as the people of Maldives. I believe that they see who is their real friend, who is their real neighbor, who is there for them even in the most difficult times. So I think it's a very positive trip, and I think people of Maldives is taking this very seriously and very positively.
Talking about help, Mr. Adeeb, today a very crucial help has come in from India, that of currency swap. And this is $400 million for 3,000 crore rupees for the Maldives, considering the kind of, deteriorating economic conditions that Maldives has been witnessing. How do you see this financial aid by India?
I think this is a very crucial moment where Maldives needs a lot of help. And apart from this currency swap, I would say during the last April and last September, last month even, the two transactions where Maldivian government had to pay India has been given some more time to pay back. So India has been very graceful and lenient. So, and with this currency swap, I would say it will really help the Maldivian economy because we can use our rupiah as well as for our imports, and it will take the pressure down on our forex reserves as well. So I believe this is a very important and a very crucial step and a very strategic assistance given by India to Maldives.
Mr. Adeeb, many across India and many political observers, geopolitical observers say that this seems like a U-turn that has been made by President Muizzu. He won the election on an India out campaign. He's now, of course, talking about strengthening the bilateral relationship between the two countries. Clearly, the fact that he is also seen as somebody who's close to China, that also playing out between the two countries.
Yes, so if you go back a little bit to 2015-14, when I was also the Minister of Tourism as well as later the Vice President. So at that time, it was President Yamin who tilted the foreign policy towards China. And as well as it was President Yamin who started an anti-India campaign after he lost the election in 2018. So actually, President Muizzu, who was a colleague of mine, who we worked together as ministers in President Wahid and President Yamin cabinet, as well as he inherited, when he got elected, he inherited the party, plus he inherited this India Out campaign. So he was running the election. It was not only him, he got the candidacy because President Yamin couldn't contest. So it was President Yamin's stand, and then there was a fallout between President Yamin and Dr. Muizzu. And after that, President Muizzu won on his own strength, the parliament. So I was always commenting, even in India media, that after the parliament elections, we'll know the true power of true decisions of the President Muizzu. And then we have seen that he's been more lenient towards India, and I think they have given up on the India Out campaign, and they have gone back. And by my experience, I was commenting even then. I was advising anyone who I met in the current government that it says that India will be, end of the day, the only country which will help us. So the history has shown us that by experience now we know. So I believe now President Muizzu is following the most strategic way, which will benefit the country and its people.
Mr. Adeeb, when you say that India is the only country that will help the Maldives, does that mean that you're undermining, the Chinese aid, that there is no trust that the Maldives has on China when it comes to financially helping the country in tough times?
I think President Muizzu has visited China. He has had bilateral meetings at the very highest level. But so far we haven't seen any of the transactions, any of the leniency or help yet. So we are yet to see that. But we see from India's side already the help is being given, is being very practical. And even though there was bad days, I mean, between the relationships, but India never stopped being graceful and being very kind to Maldives, I would say.
Okay, talking about trade between the two countries, in the past few years, trade between India and the Maldives has crossed more than $500 million. Clearly, that is now taking a further boost as well, now that the ties are coming back to stability. But the two leaders also talked about FTA talks. How do you see that moving forward between the two countries?
I think that will benefit both countries because we have a quite number of trade happening between the two countries, as well as Prime Minister Modi is taking India towards 5 trillion economy and then development. I've been always advocating that Maldives should be a partner of it. So if we can integrate our both economies together, how we can benefit each other, I think it will contribute a lot, and I take it very positively about this meeting and then also the FDI talks. I hope that it will go forward and conclude it.
President Muizzu invited Prime Minister Modi. He also invited Indian tourists today to the Maldives, and that is something that we have seen did take a hit when there was a strained relationship between India and the Maldives. There was Boycott Maldives campaign as well that was running online. Several Indians cancelled their tours and trips to the Maldives. The tourism industry, of course, in your country was impacted by it. But now do you see that now this visit will further give a boost with Indians choosing Maldives as their place for vacation?
Yes, we were badly hit by those boycott campaigns, but with the improvement of relationship, and I applaud President Muizzu and also the current tourism minister who initiated a visit to India. And with this visit, I believe when things are becoming more positive, we see a number of tourists are coming in again. The travel agencies which stopped after that incident has restarted the tours to Maldives. So I believe with India, I think we will have a very good New Year season. And also this year we suffered like June, July was very tough because there was off season. If you take last 4-5 years, there was no off season because Indian travelers were coming in, filling the spots. So I believe next year will be good, and I hope this relationship goes beyond this everything that we see today. It can go further up, I would say, and I hope really President Muizzu and Prime Minister Modi takes it way forward.
The Indo-Pacific region, its stability, its prosperity is something that India and the Maldives both are concerned about. This is a shared goal that the two countries have in common. How do you see the two countries, India and the Maldives, really working towards the stability and the prosperity of the Indo-Pacific region, as well as in terms of maritime security?
I think recently the world has been in a very uncertain went through a very uncertain phase. But I believe now Maldives and India is back on track, I would say. And I believe we should work together to keep India Ocean safe and free from any turbulences or any free of any strategic military posts and powers. Because we believe the Indian Ocean should be Maldives should not be like a pawn to any of the big powers who is going against each other. We should have more balanced, and we should be a tourism country, nothing strategic or military, but it should be a tourism country promoting tourism, which is welcome for all.
But, considering your location and its geostrategic significance, can the Maldives escape not being caught between big powers?
yeah, it is up to us to balance. That's the way people elect leaders to do the best decision for them. And as well as we believe if we are with our neighbors, we will not go wrong in a way, because end of the day, we Maldives and India are here to stay. We will be near each other for whatever happens in the world. So I believe if we are with the neighbors, we will go in the right direction.
All right, Mr. Ahmed Adeeb, thank you very much for joining us on Global Mirror and sharing your thoughts on this absolutely significant visit and, of course, the India-Maldives relationship. Thank you very much. All right, with that, viewers, let's also welcome Ambassador Veena Sikri on the broadcast. I'm also joined by Professor Madhav Nalapat, geopolitical expert. Good evening, namaskar to both of you. Ambassador Veena Sikri, let me begin with you. You know, this has been quite a turbulent relationship in the past few months between India and the Maldives. We've had our ups and downs. But do we see this as, you know, he was a politician who had a certain stance before he took the seat and he assumed the chair, and now that he's assumed the position, he is talking about strengthening the bilateral relationship and talking about good ties with every other neighborhood country?
Yes, I think the visit of President Muizzu, a state visit, very one arranged with great pomp and splendor, is a very good example of the success of India's neighborhood first foreign policy and the importance we attach to security and growth in the region, Sagar. You know, the importance of Maldives in the Indian Ocean. Because yes, you're right. There have been a number of issues since November 2023 when President Muizzu was elected. And some of them, of course, you can put down to the fact that during an election campaign, you take a certain stance. You want to be, you want to differentiate yourself from the incumbent president, and so you take the opposite stance. All this happens. But when President Muizzu was elected, he did talk about India out. He did ask for the removal of the pilots who were there to man the Dornier aircraft and the helicopters, which India had given them for humanitarian and medical relief. And all that happened. But I think India responded with great patience and with great calm. And we continued the dialogue, we continued the talks. Our External Affairs Minister went to the Maldives. Prime Minister Modi and President Muizzu met outside India on various bilateral, multilateral occasions. So I think that over time, and certainly President Muizzu has been to China in the meanwhile, and he's seen, you know, what is the exact extent of how much China can help him. So he has now got a very realistic position. And it's important that during this visit, he actually said that I did not say India out in the wrong sense. I just said it about the defense personnel. And he has reiterated the importance of India's national security interests and that he would respect these. And these are two very important things. And thirdly is the tremendous positive nature of the agreements. You know, the institutional, structural collaborations between India and Maldives, the financial arrangements, the swap currency, the rupee, all this has been very positive indeed, a great success.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me also get in Professor Nalapat into this discussion. Professor Nalapat, you know, it's interesting that President Muizzu is here in India, but the fact of the matter is also that once he assumed office, he visited China, which was seen as probably an international snub to New Delhi. You know, the fact that traditionally Maldivian presidents have first visited India after assuming office and then gone on to other countries. But he went to Turkey, he went to China, and now he's in India. Says a lot about the kind of priorities that the new regime in the Maldives has had.
Well, I'd like to say one thing, Shreya, and that is that this gentleman has been talking about Indians Hatao, India Hatao for quite some time. Decades, in fact. And let's be honest about this. He is no friend of India, but he is coming, frankly, because if you say India Hatao, what you're saying is jobs Hatao. Many of the people who voted for him, possibly the overwhelming majority, depend on India for their livelihood. And one of the sources of that is tourism. Both India as well as Western countries are important tourist arrival locations for the Maldives. And frankly, this turn to China, I mean, I've always been surprised that so many people who claim to be very loyal to Islam and who claim to be very, very very, very loyal to the Muslim faith. I mean, they see no problem in embracing a country where every year hundreds of mosques are being converted into, into, for example, bars. So this has been a contradiction to me, but I'd only like to say that I think he has read the tea leaves and he understands that his country's economy depends on India. And more importantly, it depends on Indian tourists. And I think, therefore, he has come here. So I think,
Yeah.
quite frankly, Prime Minister Modi has shown his courtesy. He has given him a ceremonial welcome, the same kind of
Yeah.
welcome that you would give to a very much larger country. He has given the Maldivian president, and I think that is the courtesy of Indian diplomacy that has been shown by Prime Minister Modi. But again, let us be very clear: he is coming here because,
Absolutely,
frankly,
Professor
the
Nalapat, that there
Maldives is
has
in
been the
deep trouble.
courtesy of Indian diplomacy, but significantly, there have been no warm hugs. That clearly also sends across a message. We've seen Prime Minister Modi, of course, with his hug diplomacy, but clearly a message being sent by New Delhi to President Muizzu and the Maldives. But what's also interesting, Professor Nalpat, is the fact that I was just talking to Ahmed Adeeb, the former vice president of the Maldives, and he said that while India has doled out financial aid for the Maldives, China has not done anything substantial yet. They keep talking about it, but concrete action has not been taken. And perhaps that's the reason why, there is so much India dependence as well, and India reliance, because there is a reliability factor with India, not so much with China, isn't it?
Well, there are several factors. And may I say one thing? I have been very disturbed by President Muizzu's sympathy, if I may say so, for extremism. I'd like to point out that the country with the largest number of Muslims, Indonesia, you don't have the leadership understands the dangers of extremism to Islam. You look at the GCC countries, they understand the danger of extremism to Islam, to the Muslim community. And wherever you see extremism grow, you are seeing a collapse in the economy, you're seeing suffering on an indescribable scale. So, unfortunately, if you go through this gentleman's speeches, well, you will find that he has made several very vitriolic speeches about India. And I think, I don't expect that he has changed his views very sharply. But the fact is, he is a politician. He sees jobs disappearing. He sees the Maldivian economy shrinking. And the point is, how much should India help the Maldives? Because it's very clear what China is doing is holding out until the Maldives agrees to a base. And if it agrees to a base, it means it has effectively taken China's side against India, against the US, against Europe, against Australia, against Japan, against ASEAN. So the fact of the matter is that I think the Chinese are basically saying, you give us a base and we'll give you whatever you want, but that whatever you want comes with a catch. And that catch is the Chinese would like to own that territory, have a 99-year lease. Now, for heaven's sake, Shreya, 99 years is an eternity. So that, frankly, is the dilemma that's staring him in the face. You have China that wants him to basically delink himself from other countries in this Cold War 2.0. And you have India, which has always been welcoming, always been understanding, always been a good friend. And Prime Minister Modi has exemplified that. Prime Minister Modi has the best of relations, for example, with the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. The best of relations, absolutely excellent. And we in India, we have more than 200 million Muslims who are making a very valuable contribution to the national effort. So I'd like to say, Shreya, that there is no place for extremism in the modern world. And I hope President Muizzu's turnaround is not just, frankly, is not just done for sake of temporary gains, but it is a genuine turnaround. Because honestly, if you support, for example, the Maldives, if you support, if you support the prosperity of countries that are Muslim majority, you will support an anti-extremism stand, the way the GCC
Yeah.
has, the way the Indonesia has, the way so many other Muslim countries, such as Egypt, have. And you will not, in your speeches and your
Sure.
writings,
Let me take this across to
view
Ambassador
that you
Veena
support
Sikri, Professor
extremism.
Nalapat. Yeah,
Sorry,
Ambassador
go ahead.
Sikri, what's interesting here is that, Maldivian administration, Maldivian leaders can't be that naive that they are not aware of China's debt diplomacy, that they're not aware of what China wants to gain out of the relationship with them. Yet, they go ahead and build ties with them, strong ties with them. What is it that, pushes them to be in that kind of a relationship with China? They're largely Muslim-dominated countries, as Professor Nalapat said. Nobody is talking about the Uyghurs, the kind of suppression that they face in China. All that is there is the kind of financial aid and the investments that come in from China. Is that the only focus? Is that the only reason why these smaller countries build strong ties with China?
Well, China has a very strategic interest in India's neighborhood, and that's based on weaning these countries away from India so that China will have a greater say in what they want them to do, and China will have policy control in these countries. I've seen Chinese operate in Nepal, in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, and of course in Maldives as well. But Chinese approach to these countries is based totally on cultivating certain politicians. So there's an election coming up. Whoever is the opposition character, the person, China will promise them great, finances, great financial assistance, very much at the top level, fill their pockets, etc., and demand complete obeisance in return. And I think this hasn't really worked very well because, first of all, China's economy is today in the doldrums, and they're not in a position to deliver on any of their promises. We've seen this again in countries like whether it is Bangladesh, and we've seen even in Sri Lanka. When Sri Lanka went into such a huge financial crisis, it was only India which came to their rescue, and China was not even willing to reschedule their debt or anything like that. It was very difficult. Now, in the Maldives, I think something very similar has happened, and Maldives, Dr. Muizzu was promised a lot by China, and he took this very, very anti-Indian stance, India out, so on. But the reality, when it bites, has proved to be something totally different. China is not able to deliver. Of course, China is holding out, as Professor Nalpat said, because they want commitments on strategic presence of China in the Maldives. But I think this strategic presence of China in the Maldives is not acceptable to any other country in the world. And President Muizzu knows that he cannot do that, and he cannot, give China any kind of strategic presence without annoying all the other countries of the world and putting his whole country into danger. So they've realized the reality of it. Now, the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, that again is in the doldrums, and they're not in a position to give any kind of help to Maldives of that. And Maldives knows they will go even further into debt if they involve themselves more directly in the Belt and Road Initiative. So the reality of Chinese so-called...
But do you think, Ambassador Sikri, they would be able to balance that? Would they be able to balance their ties with China and India?
Look, every country tries to work it out like that. I mean, we saw even Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, so many others, thinking that they must balance it because that's what it needs to do. In Singapore, they call India and China the two wings of a jet aeroplane, etc. But in the neighborhood, I can understand Singapore and ASEAN talking about that, but in the neighborhood, the reality of the neighborhood nearness of India and what we can do for our neighborhood and what we are willing to do for our neighborhood is quite different. Now, take one example of water. Maldives was even drinking water from India. China said, oh, we'll send you water. And they sent 1 or 2 shiploads of water from Tibet. Now, that happens once or twice. You can't do it on a daily basis. So the reality is that only India can give them the assistance on education, on medical treatment, on, water, construction material, COVID vaccines, all kinds of help, which we have proved in the reality and not just promises for the future. So that is why I think this time the economic reality of the financial cooperation is real, because if Indian tourists go there, then they will value using the RuPay card. And the Maldives people, the Tourist Industry Association, their most important association, said very clearly from day one to President Muizzu, we need Indian tourists. And when there was an India out, Indian tourists just cancelled.
That's right.
So I think it has been a very real political check for
Okay. Okay, we'll leave it there. Hopefully, the two countries will have a stronger relationship than what they've seen in the past 1 year or so. Thank you very much, Ambassador Veena Sikri and Professor Nalapat, for joining us on Mirror Now and sharing your perspective. Thank you very much. With that, viewers, it's a wrap on this broadcast. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Good night. Bye-bye. Up next is my colleague Sneha Koshi with Beyond the Headline.